and the reports that are available within Indiana IEP here. So the first place I'm going to look is under reports here, as you might imagine. And some of you have seen all these, so it's just mainly a refresher for you, but there are quite a few reports available for us within the IEP system already that have been pre-built, and we try to do, and always have conversations with PCG around developing reports that you guys can access here more readily than having to recreate it for everyone in advanced reporting, just because not everyone has the comfort level to create those reports. And whenever we can, we try to put those out. If we get a lot of requests, like for example, in this one right now, I think we can look at the progress monitoring logs. So that's something that we had lots of requests for over the years, and finally got PCG to work with us to develop a system for you. So when you look into reports and under faculty and staff, you can generate a progress monitoring log for your teachers. So just to give you a glance at that, it'll let you select a school, or if you leave it blank, it'll select everyone in that, all the schools and all the teachers of record. But within the school, then you can choose who you want and then set a time frame, and it will present for you all the students on their caseload, all the goals for those students, and how recently they've been progress monitored, and give you some details around that information. So the rating and the notes and all that stuff would come up in that report. So instead of you having to go through and first of all generate something in advanced reporting, or going through all those IEPs and finding all that information out, this does that for you. So that was a big one we wanted to deliver, and that's just relatively recent for us this school year. So take advantage of that one if you're looking into keep and trying to keep track of progress monitoring for your staff. So that's a big tool there to take advantage of. Let me jump back so we can see the other options. So there's several reports in here. Obviously, we went through the faculty and staff. We have general administration pieces. If 504 is of interest, you have some records there. If you log services in the system, there's, as you can see, quite a few reports in here that can generate information for you. One thing that I found that's useful for even if you're not documenting services in the system directly, this little prescribed versus delivered services can be a nice little report to run, because it's going to give you a list of all the services that you've promised for students. So it'll give you that list there, and then you have it all in front of you, and you can sort it however you want. Well, it's a PDF, so you won't be able to sort it too much, but it will give you those reports, and you can see what that looks like. You can generate reports for any of these special ed services or related services. So if you wanted a report on for occupational therapy, all the students are receiving that service within a date range, then it would produce that for you. So that's a nice report to have. That's one of those things I get asked or generate quite often, is give me a list of services that our occupational therapists are providing or physical therapists are providing, and that will take care of that for you. So that's a nice little report for you. And I don't know that everyone knows that's even there, but that's a nice tool to have as we're looking at it. We also have the I guess these are more helpful for checking, to verifying information. That there's a SE report that's there, and a newly revamped EV report, which is better but not perfect. I'll put it that way. I'd really like it to be a little bit better than it is. The difference right now, it's kind of a subtle thing, but when it's looking for, when it's selecting students to put on that report, it needs to look at the reason for the evaluation, not the meeting purpose in the IEP. And right now it's looking at the IEP meeting purpose, not the evaluation. Yeah, I think that's, Sarah, that's something I can ask about, and I'll take note of that too, that with the prescribed versus delivered, have it as an Excel spreadsheet so you can sort it. So so you can, sort through that information a little more easily. Yeah, I can surely ask about that and see what we can come up with for you. But I just wanted to show these pieces to you. I know most of you know these are all here for you, but they are some nice reports to review and have at your fingertips. One of the things they get asked a lot about is the Ed Plan Connect. I know PCG is always working on this one for us. But there's you can keep track of actions parents have taken in the portal and with what they've done as well as with documents they've accessed. So you can double check that information and keep an eye on that. You should start, if you haven't already, get notifications when parents have done something in the system in that parent portal, but that I'm not sure how consistent that is for everybody. The other piece that I wanted to show you, first of all, are there any other questions with you? I know that was kind of a quick overview, but I also know that's probably not what you came here for today. So I want to make sure I respect that as well. But those are some built-in reports, and we're always expanding and refining this group. So, and it doesn't always make it on those notifications as the primary focus of change, but we're always looking to refine those reports. So please, if you use those reports and it's not giving you exactly what you thought or what you needed, any feedback you have, if you don't let us know, it's hard for us to act on those pieces. And the more we can refine these and make them useful for you, the better it'll be. So in Ed Plan Connect, how do we get a signature for initial IEPs? There's no way to print that view that's printer friendly. So you mean so you can visually capture that signature? Is that what you're asking? Or okay. So here's something that's coming, and PCG is working on right now. And this goes across the board. That we're working with PCG right now, so that if you have a parent sign that little signature area on either in the parent portal or on the IEP system, just sign with their mouse as they're completing it at a case conference, that signature will once they're done working through it, that signature is going to appear on the final document. So instead of it being in a signature under student history and the IEP details, the actual signature will show up on the document. So when next time you print that document out, you would have this parent's signature at the bottom of it, which does a couple things for you. One, it would have it right there wherever you want it. And then also you wouldn't need to do the easy facts if the signature is already captured electronically, so you wouldn't have to do that any longer if the signature appears on the final document. So that's something that's coming, and I want to say it's nearly ready. So it might be something that rolls out this December even, since it really doesn't affect the function of the system. It's something we can feel comfortable releasing during a school year, active school year. But I think you get a lot of value out of it too. So if parents struggle with Ed Plan with codes and logging in and signing, I'm not sure how to help other than to continue to point them to those resources. To be honest, I don't know what else to tell you on those. If there's ways we can simplify and improve those instructions, and I think we can look at that, but I'm not sure what else to do there. So the other thing I wanted to quickly show you in the system here is under students, and under you'll see advanced student search. So everyone can actually access advanced student search, even teachers of record on up as far as access to the system, but their scope's going to be limited in levels like teachers of records. They'll only be able to make this report to access this and report on students in their caseload. And the answer to Karen, so that's another thing that's being worked on right now, is the allowing signatures on everything that can be signed in the system. So notices of case conference, permission to test forms, those kind of things. PCG is working to develop that also. So I'm hopeful that by this summer we'll have that in place. So that I think that's where that is slated to be delivered right now. I'd be surprised if it came out during the school year, to be honest. But I think that'll be something we can look forward to. So not only the summer, but you get to look forward to this being able to sign notices as well. So added benefit. So this is the advanced student search. And what this allows you to do is set some filters for your searches. So you can go through, check the compliance status, and not everyone's going to see all these options if you don't 504 and those kind of things as you look at them. But you can see, people have asked me for how do I give me a list of everyone who's overdue, and then you can check the box there and generate a list. You can also check off, give me a list of all the students with a specific disability, or by their placement if you want to. And we have their services listed, and we have a few new things. If anyone's extended school year, if anyone's marked to receive that, you can check that box. It'll generate all the students where that's marked on their IEP. The diploma type, we had that request, so that's something we were able to, PCG was able to deliver. So you can select, I want to give me a list of all the students that are pursuing a certificate of completion, at least how it's recorded in the IEP. Check there and then click on view students, and you'll see a list of all the students meeting that criteria. And then we also have one, only includes students that have a non-standard day length. So if you're in the IEP and you're looking at the LRE placement page, there's some considerations there. And if it's marked that the student does not attend, or the student's day length is different than their non-disabled peers, then that will trigger that report. So you can run that also. So those are three things. I think there's more that we'd like to do there as well, but we also would like to give you a list, an option here for just to list everyone who's participating in the alternate assessment. I think that'd be nice. So that's something I want to keep PCG on to deliver. But that's advanced student search. And when you run the search here, just to show you that, click view results. It's going to give you a list of all those students who meet the criteria. So these are just students receiving speech services. And then you can export those results into Excel and do whatever you like at that point. So that's the beauty of that system. Okay. So any questions about advanced student search? Any questions there? So what I just did, I just went into reports and advanced reporting, so we can get into that system next. And a couple things of note as you're starting to look at this and start to use the system. I know a few of you are using Apple products, Macs or iPads to access advanced reporting, and the advanced reporting system is not what I'll say optimized for Apple products. I'm not sure why that's the case, but when we get into selecting the database and making some choices later on, it doesn't seem to work as well, and it can be a little frustrating. Actually, it can be very frustrating. So I just wanted to point that out. When you log into the system, into advanced reporting, you'll either see, depending on how your particular account is set up, you'll either see this screen, which will list recent documents and have these little different panes to look into, or you'll see the documents section. And I'm going to start on the documents piece and show you guys a few things there. This is where you're going to save and store any reports you create. So if you make a report yourself, it always defaults to start off in this My Documents piece, and these are your reports. So when you look at the My Documents, these are reports that only you can see through your account. So no one else can see this unless they have a way to impersonate your account for some reason. So and no one else in your district can see this. So I use this as kind of a test zone for me as I'm developing reports for folks, so that I can work on it until it's ready, and then I can save it and put it in the folders down here. And these are the public folders. And this is where you're going to go to find any reports that have either been saved publicly by your district or anything that's been published from PCG's side of things. So I'm going to point out a few reports there. I think that'll be of interest to you as we move forward too. So I'm going to open up public folders, and one of the most recent reports we have is the accommodations review report. And this is something that PCG put out just so we can double check on our students that are participating in the state assessment. And all this report really does, I'm gonna go ahead and run it. I just double click on the reports to run them. and it's going to run through the database. I'm not really sure what's going to show up on this list since it's a training site, but well, we have one. So what this is saying is the students indicated that they're going to participate with accommodations, but there are no accommodations selected for them in that student's IEP. So that's all this report is supposed to do, is look at the currently valid IEP. If it says in the participation level with accommodations somewhere, then it'll indicate whether or not there's any accommodations. So that's just something that's really all it's supposed to do, is tell you, hey, there's a mismatch here. It says with accommodations, but there aren't any selected. And what that tells me is that this IEP hasn't been updated recently. Obviously, it's and it didn't capture any the changes that we've put in place. So that's something to keep an eye on. It should be the districts I've helped out recently, this number is greatly reduced from what we saw from last year. And we did a lot in the system to make sure that wasn't going to happen for us again. So hopefully we don't have that issue, but this is a double check for you to make sure we have that accurate information. And there's also in this system some reports here, and I'll walk through that again. I'm in the public folders, the IN reports library, and under local admin tools, there's a section called PCG development only. And this reflects reports that we are also frequently asked to generate. And you can quickly generate them with just a double click here. So like the alternate assessment testing, that is just going to show you all the students in your district that are participating in the alternate assessment currently. So every one of these that we are going to look at here shortly starts off with a detail tab. You can see detail here, and this is just a list of the students, which is a little overwhelming, but you can also click the alt assessment by disability, and this is going to give you a breakdown of all the students that are participating in the alternate assessment in your district and by disability. So you can see how the spread there and how that looks in a nice little pretty pie chart also. And you can, when you look at the details, if you'd rather, you can also export this. There's a little icon at the top. You can export the document as a spreadsheet and look at it yourself, and you can do whatever. You can make your own graphs, you can do your own sorting, however you want. And it does sort, the case managers are all in there and all that kind of thing. So you can sort it that way if you want to on your own. So you can export any of these reports. I'm going to track back to the documents again, and this one's diploma type, and we can kind of do this in the advanced student search like I showed you, but this does a little bit more in that it shows you that detail just like you could probably get out of that advanced student search that we looked at, but it's also going to let you do account by disability. So we can, I need to move that graph over, but you can get a count of your students by disability that are receiving different diploma types. So, and this one breaks it down a little further. Let me move there we go. This one breaks it down into a pivot chart by disability, and then we also have the same kind of idea by race. So you can look at counts by type, diploma type by disability, and then diploma type by race. So you can check that out. So that's all in place for, and every one of you has access to this right now if you wanted to go into documents and check this out. Last one I'll look at here, then we'll get into the developing report, is the LRE and disability report. So this is, again, a nice detail. And then we have a disability summary, which just gives you a breakdown, students by count and the disability areas. Then we have a placement summary for school age. So this gives you a count by your school age placement codes, and then a placement summary for early childhood codes as well. So you can get at least a snapshot of what's going on with your district. So that's where that goes. Now, before we get into any further, I do need to remind you that whenever we're looking at this information, it's going to only be as accurate as the data that's in the system. So if you have issues with students showing up that shouldn't be, then that's something that will have to be resolved to increase the accuracy of that report. Now, one thing to keep in mind going forward is, and this current year is probably the last year that we're going to use the real-time reports, I believe. I know you've probably heard rumor and heard maybe me talk about the Link initiative that's coming to replace Learning Connection. Part of that is a data exchange, which will be a connection, a direct connection between your school's information systems and the Department of Education's databases. So your student information database will have a direct link into the state's information. And what that will do for us is give us a heck of a lot more accurate information around your current enrollment and be able to update more frequently than the real-time defaults to. So real-time defaults to a weekly update, but the data exchange is something that could happen every day. And as you change, as you update the information in your school database, then that night it would be updated in the state systems as well. So that's a pretty powerful thing. And when that's in place, then that will roll full. I mean, I think that'll improve the accuracy of the whole system reporting tools. I think the first step of that, it was intended to roll out this December, but I think it's going to happen into March now, is a calendar integration. Instead of you having to generate a CL report every summer, you would have just just update your school information, student information system, the school database with the calendar, and then it feeds into the state database, and there you have it. There's no more than that. That's something that'll be tested and run through this summer, or I'm sorry, the spring, and delivered later in that spring. So in any case, that's data, and maybe more than you wanted to know about all that kind of stuff, or maybe you want to know more, but that's about all I have for you. Sorry, wish I could tell you more detail. So as we're looking at reports here, I'm going to go back to the home section. So this is where I'm going to go, that very first tab on the far left, to start off creating it. As I start creating a new report. Now I went ahead and left those other reports open. You can see those tabs across the top. Those are still open. I can still jump back to them and see them if I want to, or you can click the X there and remove those from my view. Whichever way is fine. Once the report's run, it's not doing anything other than just sitting there. So, excuse me. As we're starting a report here, what we need to look for on the right-hand side is this My Applications. So, Amy, as far as the reports in the system right now, well, let me show you a trick here. If you're up to it. So if I run one of these reports, say this LRE and disability report, I don't have the authority. I don't have the authority in the system, and you don't either, to actively edit this report. So one way around that is to do this. You can choose Save As, and then when you do this, I can save it into my favorites folder and say, I can call this the MJ version, just for fun. And then now a copy of this report, when I go into my documents, is right there. So what that lets me do, and this is kind of jumping to the more advanced part of this whole thing. What this lets me do is look at the design of the report, and now I can, since it's now saved as my report, I can edit the data provider, so I can filter for teachers of record, or blanks, or whatever. Like you see here, there's nobody as teacher of record for these students. So so you can filter for that, or give yourself a list. I want to see everyone. I just want to see students who have no teacher of record, and find out what's going on. Is it something with the report? Can I refine it, or something like that? So whenever any of these reports that you see that are pre-built for you, you can click that Save As button, and save it into your district folder or your favorites folder and see what's going on. So if you're like, how did they do that? How did they figure that piece out? What are they doing here to get that result? You can go find out yourself if you really want to. So you can look at the details here under Edit Data Provider. And this is the advanced little look at this, but you can see here's the results and result objects and query filters for this report we're looking at right now. Not real complex, this one. Not complex at all, actually. So anyway, that's how you can do that. So that report, if you wanted to filter for any piece there, then you would have to save it yourself and then do the work there. That's the short answer on that one. So if I'm ready to create a new report, we can click on this web intelligence piece. And I don't know if you're able to do it with me or if you're watching at home. I'm going to just show you how this works from the get-go. So it's going to take us to this blank screen. At the top, by this web intelligence line, there's a little new piece of paper there. We click on that guy, and then we click on the universe. Now, and I should mention as I'm going through this, we have a text walkthrough of this, as well as a PowerPoint that walks through this piece, what we're going through today. And Patrick did for us a recording of the basics of this as well. So I can make sure you guys get access to those things today as we're going through if you'd like, and we'll see where that goes. But we click on the blank page that gives us choose the universe, which is just the database, and then we click OK. Now this is where if you're using a Apple computer or device, that you're going to run into some issue because it doesn't always show you for some reason the choices and let you scroll through those selections. So on Windows-based machine, it's pretty straightforward. But you want to choose version 1.2. Both of these versions have all the same information in them. The 1.2 is probably more up to date actually, and it's organized to match the way the IEP system's organized. So I'm going to click OK there, and then I'm going to get the query panel here. So let me make that a little bit bigger, and please let me know if anything's too small on the screen. I can magnify things a little bit and just make sure you can see everything that's going on. So when we look at this, it's divided into 4 different panes. On the left-hand side where it says the universe outline, this is your database. These are all the fields in the IEP system. So if you have this open right now, look around a little bit. You have a couple, multitude, we'll say, of folders and items within these. As you're looking at them, the 2 big distinctions that we're going to talk about are historical data and the current workspace. So historical data is information from a final and accepted IEP in the system. So the IEP has to be an active IEP for that student for them to show up on that data to show up in the historical information. So that's all the past and current final IEPs. The current workspace is the right now information. So that's what's in the workspace currently. And so keep in mind when I say that, that's the student's current grade, their current school, their current teacher of record, and things like that. So if you're running a report, sometimes you have to think through that a little bit, and because you want to pull, I just want to look at goals, but I want to see the student's current school, their current grade, and their current teacher of record, but historical goals. So you have to think of things a little bit that way as we're developing, and maybe we can do that a little bit as we develop a report together here shortly. So as we're going through this as we're looking at this piece, just keep in mind that we're going to find some things, like if I go into student data here, just to illustrate something, you can see now on the screen the 3 types of items that we're going to see, the objects that we're going to see in the system. We see the first one is this little blue diamond, and that means it's a field we can put we can use it as a result, that whereas we want to display that result, or we can use as a filter, meaning we want to filter by that particular piece of information. So those two can go in either of those spots, and I'll explain the report query or result objects and query filters here shortly, a little more detail. The student count, and you can see here it looks like a little ruler. That's just a value. So if I wanted to count the number of students in a disability area, then that's what that would do for me. I can the result objects, I'd put the primary disability, and then student count, and then my filter. I can't put student count in the filter. It won't let me do that. Oh, it didn't let me do that. It's not supposed to. The active students only is just a filter. I'm sorry. It's a filter only, so it actually can't go in the area. Prove me wrong more and more. The active students only is well, actually, I'm sorry. Well, is a filter only. There's what I should say. So what this will do for you is only allow in your report students that are active in the system. Because one thing to consider in the database here is that everybody for the whole time the system's been running is in the system. So active students and all those inactive students as well. So, and keep in mind, our system has been active since about 2011. So there's 9 years of students and data and IEPs all available here. So you can look back. In fact, we're running some information right now, looking back over the last 6 or 7 years of some different pieces. And the system's got all that data still in there. So you can look back if you want to. But the active students only will just show you who's active students right now as far as they're reported in your system currently. So let me talk a little bit about the other objects, or other window panes, I guess you see here. So the result objects are basically, I always think of this in terms of the headers for your, like an Excel spreadsheet. So the headings you see across the top, that's what your result objects will be. So what do you want to see? Like the students' names, their STN, the teacher of record, primary disability, service descriptions, those kind of things. Anything in the IEP system you can show as a result object, and then whatever is in that little placeholder on the IEP will show up in that box on your report. So the result objects are just think about what you want to see on your report, what do you want it to contain, and then the trick is the next step on the query filters. You have to think about who do you want to be on your report. Do you just want active students only? You want eligible students only, and you just want from the last final IEP. You don't want to see all the results for all the students' IEPs for all time. You just want to see what's most recent. So, and you can also, in the filters, you can choose things like grade level or LRE or disability area or school or teacher of record, and filter for those. So you can see in the reports for some of you that work, that manage a whole district, I can see, I just want to see this one school's worth of information, or this one teacher of record. I want to see just your present level statements for all of your students. You can do that in here. So that's the big thing in this whole process, is to think about that. Advanced reporting is a means for you to shorten, well, to give yourself some time back, I think, in a lot of ways. So if you think about those things you have to do constantly, which requires you opening IEPs, scanning to a certain page, and writing down what you see, this can help you out a lot. I use some basic reports, which I'll show you here shortly. And we'll create one quickly together, and then I guess I'll take requests from the field on reports you'd like to see us do. But I use this all the time when I do workshops on writing annual goals. Is when I go into a district, search for, I just want to see the goals that your teachers are writing, not to evaluate them, but just to get an idea of what's going on. And then I'm better informed going into those buildings with, okay, I understand where you're at with this process. And if there's anyone who's specifically struggling, we can talk about that too. So result objects are what's this going to display on the report. The query filters is your tool to filter out the results you don't want to see. And the data preview is before you actually commit to running the report, you can click on this refresh button, and it's going to show you what you've captured. So that's all. I guess that's the technical walkthrough of that process. But now let me just go ahead and show you what we want to see. So in this case, all I'm going to do is try to generate a report and give me a count of students by primary disability. Okay, that's pretty straightforward report we can run, and we'll see how that goes. So one of the things that's interesting around the system is well, first of all, for those of you that are familiar with the IEP system, you're going to find as you start looking in here, there's the IEP process, there's the referral process, basically evaluation. All those sections are broken down by the folders. The pages are all broken into folders, and in each folder, you'll see all the fields that are presented in the IEP system there. So in this particular report, the only piece that I'm looking for the result objects is the primary disability. So I'm going to look, and I'll start back fresh here. I'm going to look in historical data and look in the IEP process and look for the eligibility information page right there. And there, sure enough, is the primary disability. So I'm going to drag that up to the result objects. And you could also do the highlight or click on the primary disability and then use the arrow to push it over there if you want to. And by the way, if you put something up there, maybe I accidentally put the secondary disability up there also. Well, that's not, I don't want that one, so I can either drag it back out of the screen back over to the database, or there's a little X right here I can click and it says remove, and then it'll remove the highlighted item. If you check this double X, it's going to remove everything in that box, so just keep that in mind. So the other things so here's the thing with this one. If I just run a report with this result object as primary disability, it's going to run for me everybody in my school database and their primary disability, including everyone who doesn't have a disability. So it's going to give me a bunch of blanks and a whole lot of information that I don't want. So in order for us to get a little cleaner result, I have to do a few things in my query filters to make sure that I'm just looking at what I want to see, or what I need here. So the first things to keep in mind with this is, as you might imagine, this can get a little overwhelming. There's a lot of information here. One help for you is this search tool at the top of the page. So I know that from the one, before I move into the query filters, I want to use that student count. And I can just do a search for that, and then once I find it, just drag it over there. And then to go search for my next item, I make sure I reset that filter. And I always click this collapse button, so it just kind of brings it all back to the starting point. And at this point, you can see, again, it's going to count for me all the disabilities for all time, for all IEPs, for all of my students since the beginning of the IEP system running. That's not what I want on my report, though. So I'm going to have to use my query filters to fine tune that a bit. And in that case, I'm going to look first for the event selector. And this is one that can be very useful for you. So there it is. And I'm going to put that in there. This event selector, in a moment, I'm going to use this so the report's only going to show me the most recent final IEP, the currently active IEP only, not the historical records and those kind of things. So we'll come back to that one. I'm also going to want on my report only active students. I don't want the inactive students that are on there now. And that changes some, it depends on your report. Sometimes you want all students that are active or inactive during a span that had IEPs. That's up to you. But in this case, we just want active students only. And then I only want to see eligible students. So that's what I found there. So these three filters that you see here are valuable in that you'll probably, for most of your reports, you'll use these as the core filters for your reports. Because I could add in, and that one slipped up there also, I could add in things like grade as a filter. So maybe I just want to see students within a certain grade range, or I want to see students in a certain school, or age range, or by ethnicity if I need to. For some reason I can do that. So those are some options there. But in order to finish up with our query filters, we have to do a little bit more here. And for the event selector, for example, we choose, there's a little bulleted, looks like a bulleted list that says define filter type. And we're going to look at values from list. So the values from list for the event selector, basically that's the event select. When you see event selector, think student history. When you look up a student's record and you see that student history section, all those events that are created in student history are right here. So the one that we're interested in is near the top where it says currently valid IEP. And you can see all those different, there's service plan also, and LEP plan, Medicaid consent, all kinds of things in there if you're wanting to filter for that result. But right now we're looking at currently valid IEP. So this is going to, what that just did when I run this report is now I'm going to see only final IEPs for these students, and the most current one, by the way, not all of them, but just the most current valid IEP. We already selected active students only. There's nothing we need to do there, but we do need to do eligible, and the values from this list on eligible, it's either yes or no. So we choose yes. And I always advise folks to go ahead and choose, even if you think you know what you wanted to type in that box there, choose values from list so you can see all those choices, because the values you put in there, those fields, are what you call case sensitive. And so if you misspell something or put a capital letter where there wasn't supposed to be one, or lowercase when it should be capital, then the result won't work. So that's something to keep in mind as you're looking at these pieces here. You want to make sure, and using values from lists is pretty powerful there. You can also do something here. If I wanted to go a little further with this report, I'm just going to help do this to illustrate the point, is I'm going to use the event selector and then also use the event date. So I'll put that right next to each other. So what that does, now if I left it like this, it says event date in list, that's today's date. So I wouldn't get any results with that kind of filter, because what it's saying is any events that happened today. And we know too that the IEP, the database is a day old, so nothing in the system is that current. So what I might do in this case, so the event date is connected to this event that we've selected here, so currently valid IEP. If we just want to, one way to use this is say event date greater than or equal to, and I'm going to say a year ago. So what this will limit this report to, as another way to limit this, is only IEPs that have been final and accepted from that particular date, October 21st, 2019 going forward. You can also change something here, and the reason I put this up was to illustrate you can choose prompt here also. So what that will do is when you run the report, it's going to ask you for a date. So IEPs greater than or equal that were final and accepted on this date or after is basically what that's saying. And I don't know, that's something you can do if you're looking to, because, well, it can save you a lot of time if you think about using that prompt often. So if you probably don't want to write a report for each and every school in your district to just show you what the LRE looks like or their goals and such look like in the building. So you can use prompt and put school as a query filter, and then every time you run the report, it asks you what school you want to see. There's other ways to do that, but that's one way to get that done. So the report's pretty much ready to run at this point, but I'm going to run this refresh option, or click this refresh button, and so I can see the data, preview of the data, and you can see here it's going to ask me for a date. So I choose the date and move it over to the active side and click OK. And now it's going to run that report. And now I get a count for IEPs from last October till now. Here's my student count by primary disability. And that just gives me, the refresh is just a check, so that if you just want to see if you get results, you're not sure if I chose the right filter or right object, It's so much easier to test it here and make the adjustments before you run the actual query than to go in the query and try to figure that out later on. So having said that, though, I'm pretty happy with the way that looks. So I'm going to click on Run Query, and that's going to go ahead and actually run it. Ask me for a date. It keeps the old date, so I'm going to leave that in there just like that, and let it run. And there's my results. Your guys will probably look quite a bit different than mine as you get used to doing that. As we're looking at this here, you can do a few things. You can see this is kind of shortened. And if I can get it right, you can double click on the column edge and it'll expand the field for you so you can see the whole thing. So there's my student count. Not a lot of students in my school from the last year, as you can see here, but that's the result we got. And as we're looking at this right now, if that's the result we want, we're in good shape and we can save that result. So before we do that, there's a couple things that I want to show you. You can do with this analysis of the information in the page setup here. So one thing you can do on page setup is rename a report. So I can do, clicked on the wrong thing there. I can type in a and that changes the title. So and it changes also the tab title at the bottom. So you can leave it as report 1 if you want to. It's not a big deal, but if under page setup and rename report, you can update that information. The other things you can do on this top, you can do analysis, and this is more an advanced-ish kind of thing we're doing here. With student count, you can look at functions over here, and we can do a sum, so we can add up everybody, and we also have the ability to do percentages. So you can do that pretty quickly without having to do any math on your own. I show that to everybody just because when I first started using this, I had to come up with a variable, which is a little more complex to way to generate the percentages. And then someone showed me that the function was already built there, and I don't know, kind of was frustrating that I didn't find that first. So the thing, like I said, the things I showed you, the page setup just allows you to rename the report. And the analysis gives you way on the right-hand side functions. And what you have to do to make this work is if you have a numbered field like a student count, click on that column and then choose sum, and you get the sum at the bottom. And then under more, click on that column, click on more and percent, and then it'll give you that. Or if you wanted to do average instead, it'll give you your average. However you want to, whatever you'd like to display, there's lots of options there. I don't really want the average. So that's generally how the reports are run. Now if you're happy with the report you have a couple things you can do from here. You can, probably first thing you want to do is save the report. So there's a left-hand side here, or you can do Control S. And by default, it saves it into your personal folder. So that's under the favorites folder, and you can name it whatever you want. And I used, try to spell correctly. Just like that. And then you also have some options when I click those double arrows. You can add a description, and that can be useful especially if you're writing reports for other people, describe what the report's going to do. I always check this refresh on open, because that automatically refreshes that page. So what it does for you then is updates the most current IEP for the student and allows you to choose that date range again if that's part of the prompting that goes with it. So you can do that, and then you click save, and then it's saved as in your documents under your favorite folder. And you can also choose, once you're ready, you can choose save as again and save it into your public folder if you'd like to make sure other people can see that. And that's I don't know, that's just something to keep track of there. Any questions so far? I know I've gone through a lot of information. This can be a little overwhelming in its scope somewhat, but I just want to show you the basics and how they function as we're looking at things. So the only other piece I wanted to show you before we get into some more detail is the export option. So when you have a report like this, you can choose to export the document or the whole report as an Excel spreadsheet, and then it downloads on your computer. And when you click on it, there we go. There's the spreadsheet, just like we had hoped. And now I can do whatever I need to do with this one. So that's just something to keep in mind as you're looking at the whole system here. There we go. So, and that's what a lot of people like to do with this piece. There's more we can do here as far as filtering and sorting and all that kind of thing. But more often than not, what I find folks do is just get the raw data onto the screen, get the details there, and then export it into Excel. And within Excel, then you can do the work you need to do. So we can dive in as far as sorting and, like I said, filters, counts. You can run your pivot charts and things like that in Excel if that's what you want to do. You can do some of that stuff in advanced reporting too, but it's so much easier in Excel. So this, basically what I use it for is to generate the raw data. And then if I need to manipulate it at all, then I use Excel to do that, or put it into a database that like Access or something like that. That's one project I put on myself a year or so ago, was to see if we could do a more responsive version of the disproportionality reports. And you can do it. I mean, it's all the information's in the system that you need, just a matter of pulling it all down and knowing how to use databases like Access to generate that stuff. And you can pretty much generate, you can get your different scores and risk factors and ratios and all that kind of stuff. It was one of those. That's kind of how I entertain myself sometimes. So yeah, I know that's not what everyone's dream is, but that's something else. So when we're looking at a report like this, and there's going to be situations where you realize, oh, you know what, I forgot to put something in. I meant to add in the school or the current teacher of record or something like that. And what I want to show you next is how to do that, really. So I've forgotten, let's say in this case, I'm going to put the student's grade level in the system. I want to put the grade level on the report for some reason. So what I have to do in order to do that, I want to make sure I have design chosen at the top right. If I just do reading, that's all it's going to let me do is read and save it. I want to make sure design is selected, which it should be at this point by default. And then click on edit data provider, and that's going to open up a familiar place, the result objects and query filters. So in this case, I want to show on my report the student's current school. So keep in mind, we have two spaces where we can look into. When we look in our database, we have the historical data and we have the current workspace. So if I choose the school, which it's there, I could look at this, choose school from the historical data. That's the school from the most recent final IEP, which may match where they are right now, but it might not. Keep in mind, the IEP was probably written at this time of the year last fall. So think that if the schools change in the meantime, then that might not be accurate. So what should be accurate is if we look under current workspace and look for the school information. So that school from the current workspace should reflect what's in the system that's active for that student right now in this moment. Remember, the historical data is what's on the last final accepted IEP. So just keep that in mind, because sometimes you have to think that through, and you might be frustrated with your results if you don't get this. Hey, the school's not showing right. The student's not in that school. That's where they were last year. And a lot of times the reason for that issue is right here. We need to choose the school from the workspace. Likewise, if I wanted to see the student's teacher of record right now, I would look under the student data here under current workspace, common fields, and the case manager, because that's their current, right now, assigned case manager. If I choose from the historical record, then that's going to show me what the case manager at the time that IEP was completed. So that may not be what I want. So I've added the school at the top in the result objects. And when I click on refresh, what I'm going to see now is, I'll keep the same date there, is the added piece. So now I see the school name and then the primary disability and student count, which is what I expect to see. Now I'm going to go ahead and run that query so I can show you what happens on this end. So the query, when you look here, even though I added school under the result object, it's still not on this display here. I still just see the primary disability count and percentage in this case. So what I have to do is manually add that column. And so on the left-hand side, there's one of these sections. It's called available objects. So this will list for you all the objects that are in that result objects field. So I can click on that, and now there's my school, and you can see it's still not appearing here. So this can get a little tricky, and let me just go ahead and magnify the screen a bit so maybe you can see that better. But when I click on school, I'm going to drag that field over here, and can you see how the little white outline appears? That's where this will, if I let go of the button, that's where this school is going to drop. And in this case, I want the school to be the first thing, so you can see it's got the little white line there indicating where this column is going to appear. So I'm going to let go and drop school in there, and sure enough, there's my school list now. So each school name is listed, and all the eligibility areas that are within that school appear separately. So that's how that works. And now if that's what you want to keep as far as your result, don't forget to save that process so that when you run the report again, you don't have to go add the school piece back in. Just make sure you save your work as you go. Now, and that's really the general idea with basic reports within the system. And one of the things that I do a lot of, and let me show you this one. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new one real quickly and go a little faster. That whenever I generate a new report, whenever I'm going in to work with goals anyway, I generate this report for districts a lot of times. And in this case, I might do, let's see, maybe I'll use the student code, which is the STN. And then I'm going to look in the IEP process and look under IEP goals and look at goal title and the goal itself. And I can add in there, sometimes I like to add in the present level too, just so I can read through what they're reporting for present level and then what the goal ends up being. And then I'm going to reuse those query filters again. We talked about the event selector. There we go. There we go. And active students. And eligible. There we go. And then we'll do what we did. Do the same process here. Make that a little bigger. Event selector, we choose the value from list, valid IEP, click OK. Eligible, choose values from list, and yes. And then we can refresh that to view the result, get the sample. And there we go. So what this did for me real quickly is gave me an overview. These are just, again, sample students here. Hopefully you have better results for you to look at. But now I just have a report for that school district, and here we go. This is everything, all their annual goals. I can read through them. I can see the goal title. I might throw in sometimes the teacher of record, so I kind of get an idea if there's someone specific that needs a little extra help, or needs, hey, you're doing a great job, and a pat on the shoulder, that kind of thing. So that, I don't know, those are all good pieces for us. So now if we're looking at this report, say, here's what I'll do. We'll show you, because I want to illustrate that question we had earlier. So in my current workspace, I'm going to look for the teacher or case manager. And this is what I do. If I want to see results, and I'm going to go ahead and put that in. Yeah, it's up there in both fields. So let me start that over again. So in this result, what I want to see is by case manager, the goals for each of their students. The query filters in this case, like we had the question earlier, can you filter out such things as no teacher of record? So if there's a blank there, then I can filter that out in a couple different ways. But the easiest is under the query filters to add that field in. And one of the options that we have here is, let me move is not null. So what that means when you choose that option is case manager is not null, which means is not 0, or is basically you're saying this has something in that container. So when I run this report, I'm not going to see on my list any case managers that are blank. So it's going to show me just case managers who have a value in the case manager field. There's a name in there. So when I run this report again, it's going to show that, and keep in mind I added that on the query, but it doesn't show it up here yet until I drag it over from that result object list. It's over there. So now as I scroll through, I shouldn't see any blanks for my teacher of record, or case manager as the system calls it, excuse me. So you guys have been really quiet on your end here. I know we have quite a bit of time left here. So at this point, we've gone through a couple of little basic reports. Is there any questions you have around reports you'd like to run or like to see you put together here, or things that you're struggling with that I can help here at this point? A little more advanced questions as we're getting into things. And I shouldn't really say that advanced. It doesn't have to be an advanced. Any basic reports you'd like to run that you'd like to see put together, I'd be more than happy to do that here. So any questions or points of interest, I guess? So mental health services, seeing their frequency and time amounts. Okay, we can do that. So we're going to start fresh with a report just so I can show you what we're doing. And this should look familiar to most of you. So I'm going to figure out what I'd like to have on the top of the page first. That, Kirsten, I'll have to look into that one. I'm going to try Karen here and see if we can get something going here. So, oops. I'm going to go with student, last name, first name, just so we have that. And then we're looking frequency of time amounts for services. So where we're going to have to go to find that information is in the provisions. Let me again make this bigger so you can see it somewhat. We're going to have to go into provisions, and there's actually where it says student service history, there's student service description. So we want that to display on the top, but I also want to use that as a filter. You can add fancy, Amy, you can add the fancy pie charts. It's much easier to do in Excel though, to be honest with you. And that's probably where it's going to make the most sense. So I'd probably export it into Excel before I do any fancy pie charting. We do it here just because those are set reports that multiple people will come back to. Just it's a nice visual reference for some of that, but I don't know that everybody uses that often. And I can show you that here. Service description is going to also be one of our query filters for this one. So I want to keep that in mind. And as I'm going through the service pieces and keep going, there's also one of these that says time spent with time units and time period. So what that's going to do for us is give us what's in the service section. The only other piece I usually add here is a narrative, because there is a service narrative that I like to make sure is part of this, because that describes what's supposed to happen in that time period. So I would go on with this one to add the other pieces that we usually have shown you already. The event selector, we'll put that down here. We'll put in the eligible, put that down here, and we're also going to do the active students. Okay. So let's go through the obvious ones. Yes for eligible, and then valid IEP. You could also add into, if you wanted to see service plans also, you could add that in. So that would show me both of those. And then the service description, we have to be kind of careful with this one, because the service description, when I show you the values, these are all the potential values that are in the system for a service description. So it's all of them. 504, everything people have written in under the other for related services. So if I put in there, I'm going to search for mental health. It doesn't. I'm going to try psych services. That's probably not going to help me there either. Oh, come on now. So that can be a little challenging with those kind of things. So there's goat yoga. Oh, it's like that, right? There we go. So I don't know how many kids in my little sample site here are going to have any results for counseling services. They might be a few, but I'll go ahead and run that query. There we go. Good deal. So there's the description. There's my narrative. Whoa. I'm going to do this. Where's the page setup? Yep. It's not letting me. There it is. So that's the, and then time spent right there. So that's how I would do that particular one. Thanks, Megan, for that hint there. But I'd also look into, like I mentioned earlier in the reports in the system already built, you can look at this prescribed versus delivered services and do the same thing for counseling right there. And then it'll do the same thing. And I think if you look at I guess the report's meant to compare what's on the IEP versus what's delivered and recorded as far as a service, but it will just show you the actual information for the individual. So I've used that for different things like that before. So that's that piece. As far as looking at drafts versus final documents, I don't know. I have not messed with the documents piece. I'm sure there might be an option to filter that out for draft versus final, but I'm not sure. I'd have to look at that. That one I'd have to kind of look at with you a little bit and see what I can help you out with there. I'll be happy to do that, though. And really, I said that at the beginning, but as you're getting into complex reports, I know some folks will do, like one of the challenges that I have with some of these reports are, let's do things like this. Let's kind of reset here a little bit. And take this. I don't know. I have challenges with this one with transportation sometimes. So I've got a lot of districts asked to do a transportation report, and actually that service description probably is valid to keep in there. I'm going to keep that in there. Well, in any case, if I wanted to show something, if I wanted to give you a report that said, here's all the kids that need some kind of special transportation, not every district does it the same way, and not all teachers will do it right. So we don't want to miss anyone. Ideally, what we have in the system is we have, and let me show you the page, and then maybe that'll make sense here. It still might not, but we'll see. So when I go into a student here and go to the IEP page and look under provisions, I have the opportunity to add a transportation related service, but then I also should mark that transition time and transport needs are not the same as their peers. So both of those things should be selected, but not everybody does that right. So in the interest of making sure I catch everybody, I have to, when I run a report for that, I have to think about how I'm going to do that. And let me show you how that's kind of done. So with the service description, I'm going to be looking at transportation. And I want to make sure I choose the right wording or this, so it's just transportation there. So that's one thing. But I also want to say that, look at that question. You have to be careful about this question too. Are the students' transit time and transportation needs the same as that of? So the answer is no if their transit time is different than their peers. So in this case, for the transportation needs question, I would say no, if it's going to come up for me. And maybe it won't. All right. Well, what I'd really like to show you is when it does come up and says no, that by default in our system here, I'll just wait it out. But by default, if I just leave it as it is, it's going to look for students where both of those are selected. And that's what we want ideally. We want both of those. It probably should be, because there's a service piece to it, and that also engages the questions around the Medicaid piece for medical transportation as well. So when you look at that page in the IEP system, we have transportation as a related service where we get to define what that is. And then here, their transportation time is different than their peers, or needs are different. And if they're receiving special transportation, we can't help but say that that's different. Describe those needs, and if there's a health related issue, then we can describe that. So that piece is there. So they should both be checked, but that's not always the case. And so we have to think about that when we run the report. I'm going to use a special little thing here called a nested query, or nested filter, I'm sorry. And I'm going to click on that piece, and you see that little or just appeared there. So all I do is this transportation needs and service description are together now, grouped by that or statement. And what that's going to do for me is, if either one of those is true, then I'll get that student's result. Okay, so if either one is true, I'll get the result if I use that or. If I use and, they both have to be true for that to work. So in this case, what I'll see is current valid IEP or service plan, eligible, active, and if they have a transportation related service, or they've marked transportation needs. And that or it's right over here. There's a nested filter. Can you see that okay? It's right by the query filters line. Go all the way over there, and you click on that, and you'll see another thing appear. And that can be pretty powerful. So if you want both things to be true for your result, then you can choose that option. And then when I run this, it's going to, I have to add my transportation needs in there. And what you can see here is some of the transportation needs, some of them are yes and some of them are no, but they all have a related service for transportation need, and they all have a narrative around that. And I could probably show that better to you if I add in that service description again, so you can see that. So there's, well, what that's going to do in this case is show me all those different transportation and related services, and that's not what I want either, but we can filter that out. So I don't know, any questions or pieces we could look at? I know we're getting close to our end of time. I do want to make sure I let you know this one, if you do have to take off or head out early, I want to make sure I share the link with you. All right. Make sure I'm doing the right thing here. Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, no space there. Anyways, that's the evaluation. Will take you to that piece. And I think today's right there at the top, right there. So I don't know, the idea with the whole advanced reporting piece is to simplify some of the processes you have to do. Instead of going through manually reviewing IEPs and putting your eyes on each and every, and hands on each and every IEP and finding that section and then reporting on it and taking notes. This can be helpful in that piece. So one of the things I challenge folks to think about is, as you're reviewing, is working with your staff, as you're trying to get an idea of the quality of IEPs that are writing and developing, that you can use something like this. You know, what areas of the IEP do you want to look into? As all those fields are in the system. So if you want to look at present levels and goals, services, accommodations, all that information is in the system already. And it's just a matter of running a report that will capture that for you. So, and with a little bit of effort here, you can run those reports in a matter of a few minutes, or have them ready for you. There we go. So with indicator 13, there any chance that a series of save reports can be created to help local with monitoring? Some of the areas will be helpful. A folder might include. Well, I think those can be, you know, I'm pretty sure that I've done something along those lines in the past, Ryan, with the piece, or with the reporting. I've tried to do that in the past with advanced reporting, to just capture that indicator, the indicator 13 items, those different criteria that DOE's put out and INSTRUCT's put out for everybody. I'm pretty sure I've got something like that already built, but it's been a little while. So that's something I did gosh, that's probably a long time ago now. But looking at those, this is actually looking at the age and finding those students first and giving us the information. And then you could add those fields you're interested in. If I want to see post-secondary goals, annual goals, summaries, and all that, you could add those to this. Well, if I go back to that report, I could add in all those fields here for your district or your schools, really. So That can be pretty powerful. Then I could add in all the post-secondary goals as a field, transition assessment summaries as the field, annual IEP goals, services, and activities are fields also. So I could add those pieces in across my result objects, and I'd have it. I'd have what I need out of that report. So we could, if you're interested, that's something that we can. I'd be happy to work on that with you if that's something you'd like to do, and we can get some results on that. Or if you want to try developing something, I'd be happy to help you out. Yeah, we could definitely do that, and I think that'd be nice. If we do something like that, we can at the very least we could share the screenshots of the different pieces so you can get more. You can recreate that report in your own sites. Now it's going to be interesting going forward, because I know one of the drawbacks to advanced reporting right now is if you're working for a cooperative, that Indiana IEP treats every district as its own database, so you can't share advanced reporting reports easily between them. You have to recreate them for each district. With the changeover to the link initiative and the way that's going to work, there's a possibility that co-ops will have an aggregate access to the system, which is something we've been trying to get for a while. And if that happens, then you may be able to run reports for your whole cooperative at once, rather than having to go around and generate reports for all 10 sites. So yeah, let me know. I'd be happy to help out with that. I know Patrick and I do a lot of that work, and I know Rosalind does a lot of work with reports as well. So yeah, we'd be happy to start something up. Be happy to help you out. So the handouts and video we have actually I think they're just on our site. So if you go to our website under Learning Center and the IEP system, I'll put the link up here shortly. There's some downloads here that there's the advanced reporting walkthrough for you. So that's really the only handout there is, but the step-by-step guide for that. And I will share that link real quick. And there you go there. And I'm also going to get the video that Patrick did for us just as an intro to advanced reporting. See if that's still available. I think it is. There we go. And we can share that too. And I'll put that also. So that's the two pieces that we have right now. So there's just a text walkthrough of what we went through today, just a very basic look into the system. And then there's also a video, which is the same walkthrough more or less. So it gives you an idea there of how that might work. So I do appreciate your time today, but in respect to that, I do want to, kind of release you to back to where you need to be. Hey, thanks for being with me today and walking through this system. I know there's a lot going on within it, and it can be a little overwhelming to look at in its scope. But I think the thing that's going to help you the most is having, like Ryan mentioned, he's got a plan. I want to do this from this system. So how do I do that? And if you have that goal and target, it's so much more, meaningful to go into these things, so you can get access and develop them, so you can use them and access those reports later on. So if there are things we can do to help you out, today doesn't have to be the end of our conversation. It can really just be the beginning. So let us know if we can help you in these, and we'd be more than happy to give you advice or help you develop reports on your own. Just let us know, and we'll do the work with you. Don't forget to, if you can, to participate, get that evaluation form done. Like I said, you should be getting an email with a certificate for today and a link to the recorded video of our session. And also, if there's more than one person in the room with you, make sure that you let us know that, so that both of you can get credit, or all of you can get credit for being here today. We really just need your email and your name, and we'll get that information out to you. So thanks for your time today. Appreciate it. And with that, I think have a good afternoon, good morning, and we will see you soon. Hopefully hear from you before too long. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.